Okay, so I go through your syllabus again and again because we have to revise, and I keep coming back to a very complicated topic of syntactical ambiguity. Therefore, I have downloaded a very complicated thesis article, Ambiguity Avoidance in English Relative Clauses, which will give you a roundabout idea of how ambiguity seems to function in general in English. We will go by the article line by line because it is very, very difficult to understand. After this, the complete portion and module on syntactical ambiguity, phonetics, phonology, usage, grammar, everything should be very, very clear. This is the culminating zenith of your paper. Ambiguity Avoidance in English Relative Clauses. It's from the University of Rochester. Are syntactic choices influenced by the need to avoid ambiguity? Studies of the use of that with English embedded clauses, main clause, subordinate clause. Main clause, a sentence that has a subject, a predicate, can stand on its own with complete meaning. A subordinate clause, a sentence that requires the main clause to function as a complete sentence. For example, to go to school is a subordinate clause. Who is going to school? When are they going to school? To go to school is an incomplete sentence. It has a subject that is missing, therefore making it the subordinate clause. It is argued here that these conclusions may be premature. Statistical analysis of another phenomena of English, use of the optional relative pronoun. Now the problem why you all get confused with syntactical ambiguity, my dears, is also because your basic English grammar is so ruined, so apathetic, so disgusting, so bad that I can go on and on and on with imageries and synonyms of negatives, but I'll stop here. But it's such a passionate subject about. I'll talk to you someday in at leisure. Right now, the problem of syntactical ambiguity that each one of you faces is you are neither aware of English grammar very well, nor are you aware of the grammatical rules. So the moment a sentence has a phrase called relative pronouns, you are absolutely bonkers because you have no idea what relative pronouns are. Relative pronouns or relative clauses. What are relative clauses? They are those subordinate clauses that link and give further meaning to the sentence. This, that, these, those, what, why, whom, which, all of these make up to be your relative clauses. They add particularities of meaning to the sentence. Statistical analysis of another phenomena of English, use of the optional relative pronoun or complementizer with objective relative clauses in written text suggests that both ambiguity avoidance and anaphoricity contribute to syntactic choices. Okay, there is a term of lots of new terms for you. So let's go through them one by one. One of the first things is, what is a relative pronoun? What are relative pronouns? So the simple answer put across to it is that, see, what exactly first then begs the question, what is a pronoun? So pronouns are words which are used for the main noun, he, she, it, they are also pronouns. What are relative pronouns? Relative pronouns are the W questions that you have, who, which, whose. They add further dimensions to the sentence and they link the first half of the sentence with the second half of the sentence. That's why they relate, thus calling them relative pronouns. So it is the usage of these relative pronouns that can add a lot of syntactical ambiguity. The author will argue that they can also remove syntactical ambiguity if used correctly. Okay, another term that you came across. The other term that was specifically mentioned was in written text suggests that both ambiguity avoidance, ambiguity, vagueness, linguistic vagueness, and anaphoricity. Anaphoricity is a term that comes from the word anaphoric. If I have to put it most simply, anaphoric means pronouns. Actually, anaphoric means words that hark back to previous words. So Anna said that she would do it herself. So Anna said that she, the word she refers back to, harks back to Anna, making the word she anaphoristic. So words that look back to the previous words in the statement are called anaphoristic. Contribute to syntactic choices. Ambiguity avoidance is shown to operate at a strategic level, influenced by general considerations of syntactic structure, but not by lexical distinctions or pragmatic factors. So both ambiguity avoidance and anaphoricity, they contribute to syntactical ambiguity. And this syntactical ambiguity can be avoided, he said, if the sentence construction, it works at a strategic level of sentence construction. The moment the strategic level is utilized for better description or for removal or of ambiguity, it works pro lessening ambiguity. But at certain strategic levels, it is the very sentence construction that creates a lot of ambiguity in the statement. So the fellow simply says that given the syntactic structure of sentence, a lot of time ambiguity arises where it shouldn't arise. Clear? And again, the language of the text is pretty difficult, but if we go line by line, I would give you this article at the end and hope that you will go through it at least once, remember certain phrases and sentences and quote them. So he also begins the basic argument with the term ambiguity avoidance. By all accounts, linguistic communication involves a syntactic representation of some kind, transmitted from producer to perceiver via a sequence of words from the speaker to the listener, producer to the perceiver. Perceiver, the one who cognitively, intellectually receives the spoken words. So by all accounts, linguistic communication involves a syntactic, ordered grammatic representation of some kind, transmitted from producer to perceiver via a sequence of words. For this process to occur successfully, the syntactic structure must be inferable from the words. That is to say, ambiguity must be avoided. The syntactical structure, the construction of the very sentence has to be inferable, impenetrable to any kind of obstruction, confusion. So the structure of the sentence has to be made thereof in a manner that it is impenetrable. Perhaps certain facts about syntactic structure, not all of which have been satisfactorily accounted for by other means, could be explained in terms of the need to avoid or at least to minimize ambiguity, and of the tendency of languages to develop in such a way that this need is met. So for languages, especially a language as voluble, semi-permeable as English, where influences are of so many other languages, it becomes important that within the use of language, its syntactical structure is strengthened to an extent that it becomes impenetrable, that which cannot be entered, impenetrable for ambiguity or syntactical ambiguity to arise. We have, if you will see this, it's a 20-25 page or article, and so far we've just covered 2 paragraphs. So This will continue for as long as possible. I will teach you whatever portions of it I feel are relative and important, and through the continuous reading of this passage, you have to understand how to write a question based on syntactical ambiguity. So we will continue in the next lecture. I will be giving you lectures every alternate day, and every other day I'll be giving you a practice question.